Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I've grown into the person that I am today. And I was just sitting here, and I was getting ready to go down and get the meditation books, and I was reading through the comment section of my video that I did yesterday, and I got this comment on the video that really, struck my heart a lot, and also because it's something that I feel like I've related to in my life. And so I read this comment, and I was like, I think I want to speak about this today. I think this is something, I talk a lot about setting boundaries and limits, removing toxicity from your life, knowing that you're good enough, knowing that you're worthy enough. Yesterday I talked about, when we feel like we just can't do anything at all, just trying to put at least, what's 1% that you can do? If it's can't take a shower, can you wash your face? And also, I think the more important message was not always listening to the criticism of others, right? When the people, they don't really know our situations or what we're going through, and not feeding into that a lot. So I got this comment on my video, and I say on my videos, if you want me to respond to something, please, leave a comment, DM me, and, email me or whatever, and ask me to make a video about it. So I wanted to read this. Now, this person gets very, very specific about their situation, so I'm just going to read the beginning and the end of it, because I think it's really relatable. Now, this person here is talking about a relationship, I believe a romantic relationship. When we talk about relationships in life, it's interesting, that word that we use. I think even myself, when I hear somebody talk about, if they say, this, my relationship that I have, I immediately think romantic relationship, right? But when we think about relationships in our life, we have so many relationships, In my life, I've had a handful of relationships that are romantic and tons of relationships that are, platonic, with friends and family members and neighbors and people in my life, right? Those are all relationships too. They're just not of the romantic nature. And so I think in discussing this situation, it's important to not just look at it from a romantic situation. I think it probably hurts more. Well, maybe not. I think some of my close friends that I've had where I felt this way in my life, it's hurt a lot too. But in romantic relationships, we're going to talk about doing a lot for somebody else today. But when we do a lot for somebody else and we don't feel like it's reciprocated or we don't feel appreciated, it really hurts. But I've also been in those situations in work environments. I've also been in those situations with friendships and things like that. And so I kind of want to address it from all points of view. So the meat and potatoes of the comment says, what do you do if you are doing everything for not only yourself, but for someone else who doesn't appreciate it? I feel so underappreciated and I don't know what to do. So it's interesting, I think my immediate response to things like that, right? The badass part of myself is well, I wouldn't be in that situation. But that's easier said than done, And I don't even know that I think this is the healthiest response. I mean, a lot of times, you don't want to just jump out of situations for dangerous situations and whatever. I would, first of all, always, and I'm saying to this person, I'm saying to any person out there, always consult with professionals. Always talk to somebody professionally. And especially in this situation, you're talking about a lot of very specific things in your comments that I definitely think are things that I would talk to. I mean, these are things that have really, really been helped. I mean, not this specific situation, but in communication and learning how to talk to people and whatever in marriage counseling. This is definitely a situation that I would, first and foremost, I'm not an expert on this, so I would take it to an expert and I would talk to somebody professionally about this. But, it's this interesting topic of doing things for people and feeling underappreciated, or they don't do anything for us in return. The first thing I want to say is, when we talk about gift giving, this was a lesson that I really learned from my mom. When you give people gifts for birthdays or Christmas or whatever, and it's never reciprocated, and you don't get a gift in return. Now, there's a lot of people out there who will say, I don't really care, that's not why I give gifts, right? I give gifts to give gifts. I don't care if I get something in return. But I think there's many of us that probably feel hurt from time to time, that we remember something special for somebody else, but they don't remember it necessarily for us. And so it's not really about the gift. It's about the feeling and the emotion attached behind it. And I think that's the thing, right? It's not really about doing something for somebody else, giving them a gift or anything like that. It's about the feelings and the emotions attached behind it, right? And I can remember saying something to my mom one time, I was dating somebody and had remembered an anniversary, and I think this was my first boyfriend, and they had totally forgotten it or whatever. My feelings were really hurt about it, and my mom said, well, that's not really the reason why you give a gift. So if you're giving a gift to make sure that you're keeping score of who got who what and whatever, that's not you can't go into it that way, right? And, one of the things that's happened to me through the years is that I was somebody and this is something I really had to work on. This is me being really transparent on video. This is something I've really had to work through, the years, especially with marriage counseling, is that in my past 2 relationships, and also in relationships before that, before I got sober, I was somebody that would do very creative, and this is not patting myself on the back, this is just who I was at the time. I would do very creative, special things for the people that I dated. They did as well from time to time, but I felt like I did a lot of things. Like I would plan a weekend trip and plan it all, and, you know, book the hotel, and then, you know, like make up little like flyers and tickets, and so, you know, like then do a, you know, what do you call it, a scavenger hunt around the house, and they had to look for all this stuff, and then they'd be like, oh, we're leaving in 15 minutes, go pack your bags, stuff like that, or, you know, do whatever. Now, you know, like my ex one time, I'll never forget, we went to New York City. It was like the only time I've ever been in New York City other than the airport. And we stayed at the W Hotel. It was the first time I'd ever stayed at W Hotel in Times Square, and I loved it. And they have these beds there called the Wonderful Bed. And we came home, and I had to work like the very next day, like 10 hours. And I came home from work, and I was so tired, and he didn't have to work that day and stuff. And I came home, and he had like gone to, you know, Bed Bath & Beyond or whatever, and he had bought all this stuff. And like on there, he had the little card from the W Hotel that said, welcome to your wonderful bed, or whatever. And he had like redone our whole bedding. Like those were the things that like meant a lot to me. But as the years went on, those things became less and less and less. And I did become very much of like keeping score, especially in that relationship. I felt very much like I was keeping score, and I think he did as well. So by the time that I got to my husband, I kind of was done, if you want to know the truth. Like, I was done with the buying of the flowers. I did from time to time, but I was, like, done with this. I was done with that. Like, I would do, like, special gifts, special surprises, but it was, like, that was my language that I spoke. Not just with my exes, but with everybody in my life. And at that point, I think I was so jaded and I was so hurt by, and it wasn't just that relationship, it was several different friendships that had ended at that time, and I felt like, God, I've done so much, and I don't feel like it was reciprocated, and my expectations for people were really, really high, you know? I think that's one of the things I've learned, is not to have high expectations for people. I think it's also important to say in that note that I have to have enough self-worth to know when to step away, or when to set a boundary, or when to say, I'm not going to accept this, or you need to change, or these are the things that I want from you. And if you're not, then I've got to do what's best for me. I have to know that. That self-worth is important for me today. Even if I never go there and say it, to at least feel it inside, I think is important, right? And so I can remember at that time, you know, like getting involved with Alex, and like at first, I just started doing like all this stuff for him, like trips. We took a trip to Vegas. I, you know, like bought him a lot of gifts, did all this kind of stuff. And then I can remember I just kind of, it like started fading away. And I just kind of felt like, I can remember one time I came home and Alex had like done all this really special stuff. Like he had spread all this, like these letters on the bed, and the puppies were waiting. It was really sweet, right? And I can remember inside, I felt like, that's so sweet that he did it. I don't have that anymore, you know, like, I don't know what happened to that part of me. And that's something that I've really had to talk to in individual counseling and in marriage counseling about, this expectation that I have that I do things, because in the past, in reality, I didn't do those things because I wanted it to be returned. I did those things because I wanted to make people happy. I did those things because it brought me joy. I mean, it was selfish in some degree, right? It made me happy when other people were happy. It made me happy when I could do something to make somebody's life easier, or bring joy to their life. That made me happy, right? So I was indirectly doing it for myself. That I had to become fully aware of. So then it was like, well, why did I stop doing those things? You know, and why was I keeping score with things like that in life? And slowly, and talking about it, right? And bringing awareness to it, and going and looking at past trauma and things like that in my life from 30, 40 years ago all the way to today, what's made me realize is that's the person I want to be, right? I want to be that person that does things for other people and doesn't expect anything in return. Now, when you're in a friendship, okay, and you're constantly doing something for somebody else, and you don't feel like it's ever reciprocated, what's going to happen is you're going to have a resentment, because a resentment is an unfulfilled expectation. An unfulfilled expectation is when we expect that if we do things for other people, nice things and things that they need, that when we need them to be there for us, they're going to be there for us in return. And when that doesn't happen, a resentment is built, okay? The same thing happens in romantic relationships. Same thing could happen like, oh, I brought my neighbor's trash cans up. I'm just making this up. They didn't, you know, bring my trash cans up. The same thing could happen. But in romantic relationships, I think it hurts on an even deeper level, right? That I'm doing everything. I'm making dinner, I'm cleaning the house, I'm doing blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. We all know I don't make dinner, so these are all just made up stories, right? And then they just come home and they don't do anything, and our feelings get really, really hurt, and we feel underappreciated. I think the first thing I would say is you need to say something to them, and I think that they say in here something about, they go on to talk about, you know, other things that are happening. A lot of those things, first of all, talking about like name calling and things like that, this was something I learned from a friend of mine years ago, is that she said something about, like, I can't remember in the context, but something about her husband. She said that she said to him one time, and somebody else said this to me too, that if you think it's okay to speak to me that way, you must not think very highly of me to begin with. I don't let people in my life that I care about speak to me in really negative tones anymore. I just don't. I don't let them call me names, and I did. That is something I did allow back in the day. The rules have changed. I would let people call me names. I just kind of be like, well, that kind of hurts my feelings, but I really wouldn't push it. I don't allow that stuff today. Somebody in my personal life, I don't have that many people in my personal life, and I sure as shit am not going to share a bed with somebody that is calling me names. I'm just not. And if they think that that's okay, then what they're saying is they don't think that highly of me to begin with, right? My husband adores me, and I adore my husband. Does that mean that we don't argue? No, we argue. Does that mean that we always agree? No, we don't always agree. But he doesn't call me names, and I don't call him names. We don't need to take it there, okay? That's sixth grade bullshit. I'm not doing that with my partner. I'm not going to have a partner that feels like it's okay to call me names. I'm not going to have a friend in my life that feels like it's okay to call me names. I'm not going to work with people that feel like it's okay to minimize, patronize, and condescend to me. I'm just not going to have that, you know? This battery's going to die in just a second. It just started flashing, so it's going to die. So I will be it just bounced. I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. Had to run downstairs and get a battery. So anyway, getting back to your comment. You asked me at the beginning of the comment, you said, what do you do? Well, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to tell you what you should do. I think that's one of the things that I've learned that's amazing about life, right? Is that we have choices we can make today. And choices have consequences, you know? Some choices that we make, we learn a great deal from, and that we realize those were probably not the greatest choices. Other choices that we make, we learn that maybe next time we need to make better choices or different choices. You know, other choices that we make, we learn that they were very successful choices and they were good choices, you know? So I'm not going to tell you what you should do, or anybody should do. I'm going to tell you what I would do in a situation like that. First of all, I would probably, if I was in that situation, I would say, first of all, a friendship to a romantic relationship, and I don't know why we think about it this way, but with a friendship, I probably wouldn't ask my friend, can we go to counseling? Now, I will be honest with you. Like, my best friend, Tanya Jean, I mean, we've maybe had like 2 arguments in our entire life, and we don't always see eye to eye on stuff. If she and I were at a point where, like, we were not speaking and our friendship was over, she has meant so much to me in my entire life and has existed 3 relationships and on, that I think if we were at that point, I would, and we are both in recovery, I think I would say to Tanya, like, how would you feel about us maybe going to a counseling session, or how would you feel about coming into a session with me with my counselor or something like that? I think I would ask Tanya that. But most of my friends, I wouldn't, you know? If it was a coworker, I would go to my supervisor and I would say, I'd probably go to that person first. And I'd say, hey, listen, I'm not okay with how you're talking to me. I'm not okay with how you're treating me. Is there something that we can do to work it out? And if they're like, F you, I take it to my supervisor. And I'd say, listen, I have tried to rectify the situation with this person. I've tried to have a conversation with them. They're not willing to do that. Can you sit down and talk to both of us? I would take it to a higher up. Neighborhood situation, I would approach similarly as a friend. Family member, I would approach similarly as a friend. But I would also say this with family. Family, I would go to counseling with. You know, like a mom, a dad, a sibling, things like that. I would go to counseling with. I would ask them to do that. I've had friends of mine that have gone to counseling and therapy with family members, sisters together and things like that. I think that's vital. I think it's important, right? In a romantic relationship, the first thing I would do is I would bring it to that person. I would say, okay, I feel like I'm doing everything around here and you're not doing anything, and on top of that, you're calling me names. This really hurts my situation. First of all, I will say, in a dangerous situation, well, any situation, but specifically a dangerous situation, you definitely need to consult professionals and experts in this area before you make any kind of move. I'll just say that. But on top of that, I'll say that I would go to that person, I would go to my spouse, and I would say, like, I'm not okay with this. Like, I feel like I'm doing a lot, and you're doing very, very little. And on top of that, you're criticizing me, and you're calling me names. You know, if they were willing to have that conversation, which it doesn't sound like they are to you, I don't know, then I would say, are you willing to go to some kind of counseling with me? Are you willing to go to some kind of therapy? And if they say, and I get comments all the time, and I get DMs from people that will say, you always say in your videos, I get a lot I get a lot of DMs from people that say, my husband and I, or my wife and I, are going to marriage counseling for the first time ever because you talk so much about it. Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. I also get my fair share of DMs and comments and emails from people that will say, I've asked my spouse to go to counseling, they refuse to go. And I always respond, and I say, well, I don't always respond, but when I do respond, I say, go by yourself. Go first by yourself, and if they want to join you later, they can. But go first by yourself, and then talk it through with your therapist. Build yourself up, right? And don't make any moves until you do. Don't ever, do it. In recovery, we're taught not to make any significant changes in our first year, and that includes getting in a relationship. This is suggested to us. Getting in a relationship or getting out of a relationship, And so that would be what I would do, is go to a therapist and say, okay, I don't know what to do in this situation, and work with a therapist or a counselor and trying to deal with this situation, And I think also for me, there's people in our lives that, as a gay man, one of the topics that I've heard talked about since I came out was the idea of family of origin as opposed to the family of choice. And family of origin being the family that you're born into that you can't do anything about, their blood, right? And family of choice being family that you choose to be your family. I definitely have a lot of family of choice today. I also have family of origin, right? I don't really not get along with my family of origin, so this isn't something that I have to really worry about. But I don't know that even if I did today, I would have a hard time setting boundaries and limits. Do you know what I mean? I'm not somebody at 52 years old and has gone through some really horrific shit in my life and knows the preciousness of life that I'm going to stay in situations that I'm not wanted. I actually just told my best friend this the other night. My best friend was in South Carolina, and so we were catching up the other night. We talked on the phone for like an hour and a half. And I said, because I talk about the inspirational quotes over here a lot. And I said, Tanya, I see this inspirational quote continue to come up, and I've heard this saying for years and years and years, but it comes up more lately. And I said, I was going to send it to her on Instagram, and I said, I was going to send it to you on Instagram, but I just want to say it to you in person because it means so much to me. And the saying is, choose people that fight for you in rooms you're not in. And I said, and you are that person for me. And I just want to say, I love you for it, and I appreciate you for it. And she almost started crying, and she was like, but you're that for me too. Those are the people that I want to have in my life today, as a spouse, as parents, as in-laws, as a cousin, as neighbors and friends. I want people that will fight for me in rooms I'm not in. And if they're not willing to do that the way that I'm willing to do it for them, they're not in my life today. I don't care if I have one person standing next to me. I don't really, to be honest with you, care if it's just me and my dog. I'm not going to surround myself with people that they are just takers and not givers in any kind of way. I believe relationships should be reciprocal. You're never going to be 50%, 50%. My dad said that at our wedding. He said, people always talk about it being 50-50. He's like, there's never 50-50. He was like, that's why each of you have to give 100%, because some days somebody might have 30 to give and the other person might have, you have to give 100% each day, right? No relationship is perfectly even across the board. It just isn't going to happen, right? And I do think it's important to lower my expectations. The situation that you're talking about there, though, you're having to lower your expectations a lot. You're not just talking about somebody that's every once in a while saying something, So I think it's a situation where you consult somebody professionally, number one. But like I said, outside of that, for me, what I do in situations like this, okay, is that I do not have people in my life that don't speak highly of me. It's one thing to speak the truth to me and say, I think you need to work on this, or I'm worried about this, or I challenge you on this. It's another thing to say it with the language that's hurtful. That's a completely different way. Like my mom said to me, it's not always what you say, it's how you say it. And that's something that I've really thought about and worked hard on the last 5 to 10 years. And for me, I don't want people in my life that don't fight for me in rooms I'm not in, or that I don't believe that they would. Even if they don't have to, that they would. That if anybody said some stuff about me, they wouldn't be the first person to stand up for me because they adore me so much. They love me so much. They're so protective of me. And I'm the same way with them too. That I would never let somebody talk crap about them, and almost cussed, talk crap about them in front of me and think that was okay, So if I wouldn't let somebody else do that about somebody in my life when they're not there, I sure as hell wouldn't let it happen to them, to their face, or to my face. That's how I would deal with it in my life today. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you guys want me to address any issues, please put those in the comment section below too. I love you so much, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.